I went through a really long dry spell of not winning a bracelet for like the longest time ever.
In a similar spot with King 10, we just saw Daniel push. This time, he plays it differently.
Negreanu, McKeon. Here's the flop. 10, King, Ace, Negreanu with top pair. McKeon, though, with flush and straight draws.
He's got the combo draw.
700,000. Daniel with the aces all in.
Big draw. I have a draw.
And a call.
Big draw.
I got him. Gotta hold him.
Good luck, Joe.
Yeah, it just feels like McKeon has half the deck now. He doesn't, but he's got a lot of cards to bust kid poker.
McKeon trying to get his 10-handed. The river card is a queen for the straight. And he cuts down Daniel Negreanu.
I didn't want my 7th to be in the $300 hyper turbo progressive bounty online.
Yeah, the problem when Daniel moves in, he's then committed.
Yaki going high variance here with all of that equity. He'll be delighted that he's not up against clubs or a boat. All of his outs
I got trips
currently
against
live.
the flush draw and a straight draw.
Queen on the turn. 7's full for Daniel. Yaki draws dead.
And with that, Daniel, I present to you this WSOP gold bracelet. Hold it up right there. There you have it, your Poker Players Champion, Daniel Negreanu, guys.
Welcome to the podcast, everyone. I actually shouldn't even do an intro because every poker player on the planet knows who this guy is. In fact, today's guest is the #1 most popular poker player of all time. And more importantly, he has done more to grow the game of poker than anyone on earth. He has 78 WSOP final tables, 7 WSOP bracelets, 8th on the all-time money list, and 57 million in earnings. The one, the only, Daniel Negreanu. Thank you for being here, buddy.
Always a pleasure to catch up with my buddy Chance.
Thanks. All right. So I wish I knew that we could talk about anything we wanted before we started. I would have had much, deeper questions, but I got some pretty good ones in here. So we'll jump right in. In the 2024 WSOP, you shipped the 50K Poker Players Championship. What did that mean to you?
My God, if there's like one tournament, I'll tell you what. So as people know that follow me or whatever, I went through a really long dry spell of not winning a bracelet for like the longest time ever. Okay. And so I had so many seconds in a row. It was insane that I didn't want my 7th to be in the $300 hyper turbo progressive bounty online. You know what I mean?
You play all those too.
I haven't lately, but
like the live $400 PLOs.
Yeah, during the summer, I play a bunch of stuff. But this one for me, when we created this event, I was integral in like helping to create this event in the way, in its first year. And it started off with such a bang. Chip Reese, Doyle Brunson, Phil Ivey. I mean, the whole idea we had in play was to make it a mixed game. And then the final table would be no limit hold'em, right? Because what was happening at that time, as you remember, like there's a whole bunch of young players coming into the game. So there were thousands of people and like, who are these people? Like, we wanted to see some of the familiar faces win. One way to do that, weed out the young wizards by making it mixed, right? And then switch. So for me, I've come close in that event before. And it's the thing about that event, you can't fluke that event. You really can't, even though Grinders won 4 times, right? Like, but I'm saying he's got some sort of moxie and he has some things absolutely figured out about it. Same with Brian Rast, and Jungle Man. You look at that event. I mean, there's multiple, it's only been like and there's been multiple winners like 3 times. It's wild. So to be on that list was really special because I love mixed games and, it requires more than just being good at one game. And sorry to go too long into this, but like, it's so fun because you basically get to say this. All right, I'm fine at all the games, right? These guys are weak at this game, but they're good at that game. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just ease back in those games that they're good at. And when it's my turn, all the stud games and stuff, as soon as Phil Ivey's out, I'm going ham. I'm going to punish all of you. And so it's a really fun layer that I think you specifically would love because you love the added layers of psychology and like finding what somebody's weakness is and then like, oh, I got you. You're in trouble now.
It's funny you say that because the 50K PPC is it's like literally the last thing on my poker bucket list. I want to play it. I've never played it. And I actually went to Borgata early this year to play $1,100 horse, and then Itae's $2,500, which was the 9 game with those 9 games, because I wanted to practice. And somehow I won the horse, that little mini trophy over there, and I cashed the 2,500. And I'm like, these games aren't that hard. Like, I can do this. And so you might see me in there this year giving away 50K.
No, you're not going to be giving it away, and I'll tell you why. I'll use an example of a guy, Chris Brewer. Everybody knows, top-notch, no-limit player, great at PLO, also good at single draw.
It's okay.
Whatever. I mean, he's good at these games. What he does in that event specifically, and others do this, if you're a big bet player, you force the limit guys into such brutal spots. You just you hammer them away, right? The smart thing to do, let's say, for example, you were at a table with John Hennigan, Phil Ivey, and they're all the stud savants. Maybe play it a little ABC. Don't get yourself involved in tricky spots, and then look for the PLO and hold them where they're going to maybe take a more cautious approach, and you just win a lot of chips that way. You can double up in the big bet, whereas in the limit games it's sort of a grind. But I'd love to see you in there. It's like such a slow structure and so deep, you'll love it.
What markdown would you buy my action at?
I would depending on the field size and what we expect. Like, I would 100% snap by 0.9. Right?
Yeah. I don't know if I'd sell at 0.9. I don't know if I'm losing 10%.
I'd probably buy you at par because it'll be fun.
Yeah, it would be a fun sweat.
And because like I said, I truly believe that your prowess at big bet, and single draw is a game that's designed for you too, because single draw is a game that is very, 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 very reliant upon physical tells, right? Because it's one of the purest games where it's like, I don't see any of your cards. You don't see any of your cards. So I just bet, do I got it or not?
Yeah,
there's no
it's fun,
blocker.
man.
I mean, there's a little blocker stuff, right? You can go that route. But ultimately, it's like, yep, nope, don't buy it.
I mean, that's the tournament that I look forward to most every year, is the 10K single draw. It's just
everyone's starting to fall in love
so
with that
fun.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, because it's one of those games where, there's sort of like rules in games, kind of like, you got to do this and hold. And singles, you do whatever the hell you want. Like, I did. I don't know if people listening to this know all the games, but this is I thought about this on the shower once. I'm like on my way to go play the single draw. I'm like, what would really be cool? How about this move? I thought about it. I'm like, if under the gun raises, okay, I just flat under the gun 1, okay, and then pat, and then just bomb after the draw.
Yeah.
How could that ever be a bluff, right? So I tried it. I under the gun raises, I had Queen Jack 7-4-4, which is a very, very, very bad hand. So I did the flat. The button raised. The under the gun caller called. I'm like, woo, this is even better.
Did you back raise or call?
I back raised.
Okay.
Back raised. They both call. First guy draws 1. I pat. Guy pats behind me.
So he has like a 9?
Yes. He probably has like a decent 9, right?
Yeah.
Check. Well, I just bomb it. The guy tanks for a while. He throws away his 9. The other guy missed. And of course, that one I had to show.
Yeah, I mean, that's just too fun. So you mentioned you thought about it in the shower. Have you ever dreamt about a hand or like hands that didn't exist and then wake up and like talk to someone about them?
Oh my God. I think every poker player at some point like dreams of like, how many times have you had a hand where you want to turn it over and you had like quads, but now you have like 9 high?
Yeah.
Like, what?
Oh, that
in
happens
dream?
all the time.
When I started playing,
I remember. Go ahead.
Good. So as a late teen, I remember when I was playing every day, like in my early 20s, I answered the phone middle of the night because this is before, you had cell phones and turned it off. And I went, check. It's like so stupid.
That's great. I remember like dreaming about this hand at 2-4 PLO, 200 big blinds deep, and I had 4, 5, 6, 7 in the cutoff, double suited. And I woke up the next morning and I called my buddy and I was like, "Yo, can I ask you about this hand I played in my sleep?" And it had nothing to do with like any hand that I played in real life, or it was just.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I've never had quite that one where it's like, post analysis dream of like a phantom hand, but it's probably worthwhile. Like, sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a real situation, right?
Yeah.
So you mentioned, thinking of ways to play hands in the shower. The next question is like, how have you stood this test of time? Like, of all the players that I grew up watching play the game, you're one of the only ones who's still at the top. What do you like attribute it to?
I would say first and foremost, a healthy respect for the younger generation. Okay. Because what you'll learn, how old are you now, Chance?
39.
It's going to be much harder for you to play at the level you do when you're 50. Not because you get dumb, but because you've become successful. You create a life for yourself. You don't have all day, all night to study and work and all that stuff. Guess who does? The younger generation. So a healthy respect and admiration for the work that they put in, and also always saying to myself, what can I learn from them? You know, what can I learn from these people? Instead of getting to the point where you're like, I got this game figured out. Once you've hit that point, I feel like that's where you get surpassed. I remember, you know, it's true. Told the story before, but I remember when I first started out, like in the late 90s, and I'm playing with the big names at the time, right? And they're like, I'm the aggressive young idiot kid, and they're sort of scoffing at me. And I'm like, I'm literally in my mind, I'm like, I'm way better than you now, right? You just like don't see it. You know what I mean? So for me, I've always been cognizant of that fact that like I'm not going to be the best in the world if I don't work as hard as everybody else. Mm-hmm. So I concede that to those people. What I would like to be able to do, learn from them, combine what I learned from them with the wisdom I've got for 30 years. Because so often I find that a group of players all learn the same stuff. Okay. And and sometimes I see stuff that they're learning and implementing, and I'm like, that's something I can take big advantage of, right? Which is why when people ask me, I swear to you, I always tell them if they're going to do like training, Chance is a good source, and so is Alex, because I think you guys think about the game more broadly. I really do. You think about the game more broadly than go, well, you know, Solver wants like I don't care what it wants. You know, I want the chips, right?
Yeah.
So you got to be willing to do whatever it takes. And I think the biggest, another Vanessa Selps, I've mentioned her before. I admire those people that don't care what they look like. Like you look like an idiot sometimes. I watched you play a hand. You played a hand in Bahamas. The board is 4 diamonds, ace, king, something, 4 diamonds on board, ace, king, you call the flop. You called, the guy goes all in on the river. You have ace 5, no diamond, just an ace, right? And you call, and Santosh is like,
that was in the 250K.
Yes, I remember it. So this is the thing. You look like an idiot there because you can't call, right? Except he turned over ace 10 with no diamond.
Yeah.
So he was 1000% bluffing. And this is where I try to teach people. It's like, yeah, Chance, if you just looked at the theory there, you're like, well, Chance played that terrible. That's losing XYZ. No, it isn't. Chance spent 6 time banks to give himself an opportunity to get a read, got the read, and he's like, oh my God, this guy's bluffing, right? And it was just one of those unfortunate things where you're so bottom of range, but you're almost like, God, he's bluffing, but still might be beating me. That sucks.
Do you know, like one of the things in poker, I would make a mistake and punt. And I remember punting in this one spot. I 4-bet shoved Queen 8-0 on the final table bubble, and the guy's in the tank, and he's like, will you show? And I'm like, I can't show this one. And he calls and has pocket 10s, and it comes 10-3-3, and I'm just out of the tournament. And so instead of thinking about how big I punted, I would always think about, man, I should have said, I'll show you one. You know what you'd know what I have. Or like, I have always thought about what I could have done to get them to do something different. And in the hand you just mentioned against Santosh, instead of thinking about, yes, I'm not sure I beat a bluffing range, I went home thinking about, if I would have double checked my cards on the turn, he probably would have thought I had a diamond and checked the river, and then I could have bluffed. So like, there's so many different ways to get it done. And
potentially, but the thing with that logic, and I hear where you're going with it, you have to believe, or you have to sort of, give credit that he's paying attention to that sort of stuff on that level, right? Mm-hmm. So sometimes you give away these subtle cues and you tell this great story, and you're like, what the hell? Man, you missed all that? What the, you know what I mean?
In the subtle cues you give away, sometimes depending on who you're against, aren't so subtle.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And like you had mentioned something about this earlier, but the biggest mistake I see people say is like, someone wins a tournament and they suck and they keep winning, and everyone's like, oh, that guy just sucks because he plays differently than you do or I do or whatever. But instead of thinking about it that way, if you could be like, well, what is he doing well? Like, why is he winning if I think he's so bad? It's like, well, clearly he's doing something right. And being able to think outside the box and like you said, add those elements to your game is one of the biggest keys to success.
It's always been the case that somebody doing things differently is the one that breaks through the scene. You saw, Adamo went through that stretch wherever he was just like bulldozing people with 3x pots, stuff like that. But the one, again, I'm going to go back to it because it's really the one that sticks out to me, was Vanessa Selps, okay? During that time, a lot of poker players cared more about playing correctly and making sure they look good than winning, okay? Because most of the pluros at the time, like mocked her as not being good. It's like such a spaz. She's a punter. Da-da. You know what she did? Won everything, man. All
She
she
was
did was win.
fantastic.
All she did was win. But she told me actually, and I believe she shared this publicly, so I can say so. She sort of stopped playing the high rollers because most people play in that scene. You're selling pieces, you're getting staked. She couldn't get people to buy pieces of her because they didn't understand the method to her madness. Yeah. So like they'd look at a play she makes and goes, well, that's not GTO, that's not proper. And then what they forgot to do is focus on this person winning. Same's true for players like Hellmuth and even myself to a certain degree. People see me limp in spots and like, well, that's not right. That's not good. I'm like,
today's version of that is Jesse Lonis.
Yes. Yeah. Another good
I know a lot of very good players who's like, he's terrible. There'll be, regression to the mean eventually. And I'm like, he gets it done. He gets paid. He gets bluffed through. I mean, sometimes you just got to say, this guy's winning over and over and over. Why? What is he doing better?
The difficult thing with poker, and you bring up a good point, is like, it's so difficult to discern like who's really, really good and who's really, really bad. Because as you know, especially in the high rollers, those flips matter, man. Like, really good players can go through stretches where it's like not going well. And then people say, oh, he must not be playing well. And I've been through it, and I'm sure you have as well, right? So I'm sure there's a combination here for Jesse of obviously sun running, but also him having that confidence as a result that's allowing him to do things that don't compute. Like I remember one of the best exploits I was using against people who were studying with solvers. I knew what sizes they were studying, right? Okay, well, I'm not going to give you any of those sizes. So the question is, if this is a spot where I'm supposed to bet 2/3 pot, if I bet 85% pot, do you know how to correctly in a 30-second time frame with a time bank alter your range to play it tight enough where you're playing against it properly, right? So if everyone's studying A, you throw them a bunch of B and confuse them. The perfect example for me was when I won the super high roller bowl. I knew that nobody there is studying 100 big blind deep limps. Like, who does that? Why would you do that? Right? And it worked. I couldn't have worked better for me in terms of, how it played out for me, because it's something that I'm comfortable in that street, in that lane, because, people used to do that back in my day.
Yeah.
You may remember. So, yeah. So like, I think anytime, especially with live poker, people start to think there's a correct only one way to play. They're just not seeing the forest through the trees or whatever that saying is. And I won't name the name, but there's a guy recently who sort of was like, I find him to be kind of like, I don't want to name him, but he's one of them,
Can you text me?
Yeah, I will after. But this is the right way to play. And, they're like, I heard people say, I had a guy say, he's like, I don't know any great player, no great players that don't study extensively with solvers. And I'm thinking, that's kind of a slap to Jesse Lonis, to Adrian Mateos, because he wasn't really one of those guys.
Yeah.
And he's quite good. Bryn Kenny, these guys have never looked at it. So they're just bad to you? Okay, well, I'll buy bad. If that's bad, count me in.
Sign me up. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, back in the day when you came up, it was like the golden era of poker. Like feel was king, and now it's pretty much like the solver age. Which did you prefer playing in?
Well, there's no question, the characters, the vibe, the different, frankly, and the speed of play, right? We didn't need shot clocks back then. If someone took 12 seconds, they would get it. If you took 12 seconds on a river decision for all your chips, you'd get everyone at the table giving you a death stare. Like, wow. What do you, it was crazy. Yeah. Like people played quickly. When you knew what you were going to do, you just did it. Nobody was balancing their timing and that sort of thing. And, there's a little more table talk and whatnot, but listen, I get it. The game's evolved. People are playing for very, very high stakes. You want to play, you want to get to the point where you're not giving anything away, which forces us, rather than hate the player, you got to fix the game, right? I don't blame these guys for doing this. Listen, you're doing what you're supposed to do. And like even Vogelsang, right? Christoph Vogelsang is completely covering and everything like that because it's within his rules. It's within his rights to do so, right? And it gives him an advantage. So the only options we have is either A, accept it and go, okay, this is the new norm, or let's make some rules to improve the quality of the game. Because I always look at I don't know if it's the prisoner's dilemma. If everyone did what you're doing, what would happen to the ecosystem itself?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and Ike comes to mind for me because like I can't stand playing with him. 1, because he's really good. 2, because he takes like 30 seconds in spots that are just like, you can look at him and you just know he's not thinking. It's just so blatantly clear. And it's like, he's doing it to balance his timing. And if everyone did that, we're going to get so many less hands per level. And it's tricky, man. Like, I don't really know how to feel about it. I think the solution is a chess clock.
I agree. I've been saying that for the longest time ever, and I'll tell you why. So shot clocks, I'm glad they're here, but I think for you too, they specifically hurt players like you and me more than anyone. And I'll tell you why I say that. I don't waste 30 seconds to check the flop. I save up all that time. I look at my hand, I fold instantly, right? You know what though? Sometimes on the river, I want like 3 minutes to just get a vibe.
Yeah.
Look at the guy, see when, talk it through, do all those kind of things. Now, I get the same amount of time as the same player who took 30 seconds after calling on king, king, 4. He called king, king, 4, turns a deuce, took 30 seconds to check, right? They have the exact same amount of time banks and time as I do. So what we're doing is we're not treating time as a commodity, which I think if you go to a chess clock, that's what happens, right?
Yes.
So my idea was simply something like this. Everyone gets the first 5 free seconds, right? 5 free seconds, then you start your chess clock, take as long as you like. But now if you're going to burn that 30, 45 seconds, your clock shrunk. So when you need time on the river, you don't have it. Person like myself, would get it. I think a next evolution, it's already hard enough logistically to do a regular chess clock, but the next level would be with increments. Like if you play chess and you know how chess works, everyone gets a time. When you fold your hand, or like when you make your move, you get like 2 seconds back, right? So what this promotes is everybody wants to fold within 5 seconds.
Well, and the other thing you have to add, so like the shot clocks in theory, it's the best option, but in application, it's difficult. I did want to see what kind of dog you had. But the thing is, like, you also don't want to punish the players who are in more hands, right? So every hand you enter, you should get more time, right? So there's a bunch of nuances that would need to be added to make it perfect, right? But there's something there. And technology is probably good enough now that it could be done. But then here's the other issue with like theory versus application, right? You have new dealers using a chess shot clock and they accidentally use the next player. And then you have to give 7 seconds back to the other guy. Like, so it gets a real difficult to actually execute.
It takes time to implement. But like you said, we have to innovate. And I'll tell you what's funny, because it makes me think back to like poker way, way back when. Nobody stalled on the bubble at all till one guy did it. His name was Oklahoma Johnny Hale. There was literally nobody ever stalled. And he started stalling. He started stalling, right? And so that's when there was no hand for hand. We just played. There was no hand for hand on a bubble. People just played. Oklahoma Johnny Hand, he sort of figured it out. He's like, well, if I just take extra time, and that became a rule. So, there's that. Now, obviously, people taking more time in different spots. We constantly have to adapt and create rules that protect, I guess, the fun of the game, right? Because, again, like I said, with the prisoner's dilemma, if everybody does things that are selfishly helping them, but are detrimental to the playing experience, we got problems. And it's a big part of the reason why you see for cash games, almost exclusively all over Las Vegas, there are no more games you can just sit down and play. Okay. Everything's private. It's a couple guys who run it. They keep out all the quote unquote the nits and the people that are, making the game less fun. And so that's really changed the landscape. When I grew up in the late 90s, if I had the buy-in, I could sit with Doyle and Chip and everybody and just play. There was no shutting people out. Whereas today, I mean, you got to schmooze to get in games.
Yeah, and in some ways it is good because you don't want the recreational players to lose as fast. You want them to win a little bit more often. So keeping the game a little bit softer prolongs their enjoyment, right? Because a recreational player at the end of the day knows they're losing money. They're playing for fun. If they lose every single time, they're not going to have fun. Yeah. So it's tricky.
Yeah, they want action, right?
Yeah.
They want action. And we all know, right? If you want to play cash games properly, if you were playing with no ante, the correct strategy is really boring, right? I mean, it's not fun.
Yeah. I don't
like the actual, it's really tight and boring and all that stuff. And when you see these cash games, you see the TV games or whatever, people are playing hands. You're quote unquote not supposed to. But if everyone's kind of doing it and giving action, they understand the bigger picture. It's like, all right, I'm giving these guys a little action. I'm not going to play my A+ game. Like Keating's a perfect example of that, right? He goes in there all splashy, goofy, playing wild, playing crazy. But but in the end, he gets paid in the big spots.
Speaking of Alan Keating, I had a question about him. Sure. So he called you out, I guess you could say. He invited you to come play the Hustler $1 million buy-in cash game. What were your thoughts around that? Why didn't you do it? Talk to me.
Okay, so, I mean, I think I responded to him a little bit, but it was like I took a little bit of issue in the way that he described it as though I've never done this before. I'm like, buddy, I've been around. This isn't like, ooh, You don't remember high stakes poker and all that stuff? I sat down with $1 million the very first season. Yeah, I played bad, ran
Doing the
bad.
bricks.
Yeah, I played bad, ran bad combo, which is not ideal. But
Oh,
I played
yeah.
high stakes. What he doesn't know too is like back before the poker boom, 2002, 2003, I was playing 4,000, 8,000 limit with 100K, no limit big bet caps, right?
Yeah.
So I played high stakes. I'm at a point in my life where it does nothing for me. Cash games at all, they don't do anything for me. It feels like work. It work for money. I like tournaments because there's like, look behind you. There's a whole bunch of things you can win, and that's fun. But cash games, the bravado, I don't care. It's not a thing. Like, it's in LA. If it was here, I don't know. I honestly, it's not that fun for me. Like,
Yeah.
I just don't enjoy it that much.
That makes sense. You mentioned fun and having fun in poker. There's a couple of very polarizing figures, and I have them written together, but I think we got to separate them because they're very, very different. What do you think about Martin Kabrehl?
So Martin, I think we've saw a little bit of a transformation with Martin, and from
he's better now, right?
Yeah, being like where I said if I ran a tournament, I would ban him from entering the building and my reasoning would be he's he's damaging the player experience.
Yes,
because he's being too obnoxious.
Agreed.
He was very slow, very obnoxious, and incessant. Right? I like good table banner. I like some fun, like some jokes, but you got to breathe. You got to let other people talk. You can't just do it 24/7 all day, all night. Like, I mean, I guess you're allowed to, right? Now, he sort of, I don't know if he turned a different leaf to be less mean-spirited about it, less antagonistic, and more like friendly and joking. I think he's sort of embraced the spotlight. I think he's digging it. I think he kind of likes that and sort of wants to be, he wants to sign autographs and that sort of thing. So, so I have a very strange relationship with him. I don't want him at my table. Period. Just because of how much energy he drains. He won't leave you alone. I got to get headphones or something like that.
Yeah, earplugs.
But I do think he's made progress in terms of his ability to sort of function in a relatively civil way at the table. I just wish he would tone it down, like in terms of number of words. Like if he just 40%, just cut it at 40% and you're perfect.
Definitely. All right, now we're going to kick it up a notch to William Kassouf, who, as if those of you don't know, he has been the center of the spotlight every time he's at a poker tournament for how long he takes. The tables just start calling clock on him, honestly, to the point where it's unfair to him because he'll the second he gets his cards, people are like, clock, and it's kind of like the boy that cried wolf, right?
I just was going to say that. I swear to God, the boy who cried wolf was like, you keep calling wolf, guess what? Clock. You know what I mean? Like with William Kassouf,
it's like the chess clock thing.
Yeah, I see no redeeming qualities. Mm-hmm. I see no question. Like a lot of people were given, the film crew flack for filming him, but like you're gonna film it, you're gonna put it out there because it's controversial and it's like noise. Having said that, I think he is antagonistic and incredibly slow. And the thing is like you saw, like he's got no call and he's wasting 5-6 minutes for the sake of nothing. Just to burn it, right? Yeah. I have no patience for people like that. His sort of banter with back and forth. He's constantly out of line. Like I told the floor guys, I said, a lot of people gave them flack. I'm like, you know what I would do? Remember the Breakfast Club? When he's like, you want another detention? Keep talking.
Oh,
like, that's another weekend. That's 2. William Kassouf, I'd be like, all right, say one more word. You get another round penalty. No, but that's 2 rounds. So you want to say one more word? That's 3. And you're gone for the rest of the day. One more word, just one word. I don't care what the word is. Because here's the issue. If you act like a baby and you act like a child, you should not be surprised when you're treated like one. Act like a gentleman, act respectfully. But I mean, who could possibly compare to this guy in terms of having the floor come over for some sort of issue? Like, have you ever in your career had someone come freak because of you?
No.
So, so it's not a coincidence. He's always playing the victim. Oh my God, they're trying to kill. I'm just playing my game. Yeah, but your game is problematic because you're wasting time. Play fast, speak when you want. Sure, in a hand, as long as your head's up, talk all you want. I don't like it, but whatever. As long as you're not being mean and rude. And he was all the above. And this guy, listen, it's not like he has a rosy history here. Like, with him getting kicked out of a couple casinos for doing some stupid things. Like, he's definitely a little off.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's 100% stable.
100, eh? I got under 80. Oh, 70. Chinese auction.
All right. Next up, Phil Hellmuth, WSOP boycott and the WSOP main event structure. Where do you stand on that? Do you think the structure needs to be altered? Do you think he's right, or is just trying to like pretend he's going to boycott it in order to get his way and have a structure change?
Okay, this is a pattern for Phil. Every once in a while, he finds a topic that's maybe people have been talking about for 3-5 years, but he finds it like it's the newest thing, right? And then he's like, attention, everyone, attention. I have an announcement to make. All the press, he wants to be on front page news. And it's really just about attention for him, for the most part. It really is. In this case, it's a very weird hill to die on, okay? Because listen, the main event is long and arduous. We all know that, right? It's part of the deal, right? You get a break. If you play day 1A, you get a break after day 1. You play day 2A, you get a break after day 2. You get 2 breaks already, and you get a break before the final table. So
the guy I stay with is older, like recreational, like a serious hobbyist is how I describe him. And for the main event, he chooses the starting day according to when he gets the most days off.
Yep. And that's what I do too, for the most part. Scott Seaver made a good point. He's like, listen, Phil, this happens in all sport. As you get older, it gets harder. Doyle Brunson tried to show up and play some tournaments when he was 80, and it's like, it's tough. He does his best, but it's just, that's just aging. It's part of the process. Some people that are, older, they're in better physical shape. Like Huck Seed, I don't think he would have any issues playing 7-8 straight days because he treats his body like a temple and he's in good shape physically. So here's the thing. What I would say is I already think the days are actually, they've gotten to a good place where you start at noon, you're done around midnight, maybe 12:45, right? That's it every day. You're not playing until 2-3 in the morning like we had in past years. Okay. Yeah. Maybe to get to the final table, that's a crazy day, but guess what? There's a day off before you play. So you play till maybe 5 in the morning and then, you get the next day off. What I would say we could potentially do is maybe, if anything, I don't know if he would like this, but on days, 4, 5, 6, 7, just make them 2 hours shorter, right? So you're essentially, having a little bit more time to recuperate. But because, here's the thing, and I truly believe this, and I'm going to say it, and whether people believe it or not, whatever. I always, always, always think on a macro level about what's best for the majority of people, not what's best for me. At the World Series of Poker, I was the one who fought hard to eliminate rebuys from the World Series. Not because I couldn't afford them, and they benefited me because they gave me a much big advantage, but because I knew it was wrong. I knew it was wrong to just be able to like fire double rebuy because it's sort of, weakened the prestige when people can just quote unquote buy bracelets. So many occasions I've thought about what's good for poker that's directly opposed to me. I think most people, when they think of a poker issue, they think, what's best for me? Well, Phil said, he needs a big sleep. He's a big sleeper. He sleeps a lot. Oh man, if I make the final table, which it's very difficult for him anyway, right? If I make it, I want that day 6 off. Okay, buddy, listen, there's 10,000 people. Into day 6, you're talking about 100 people affected, okay? If you make it there, how about this, Phil? We're not going to have a day off, but if you make day 6, we'll take a day off just for you.
Fine. Fine. So you mentioned the prestige of the bracelets, and you mentioned Hellmuth bringing up old stuff. This week, he's talking about there being too many WSOP bracelets given away. And in fact, I think I did a poll or just voiced my opinion on it a while ago where I would now rather win a WPT than a bracelet just because I think it's more prestigious.
So I literally spoke to Phil on the phone last night, and by the end of the call, I had to apologize to him because I was very, very mean. I was very mean. He got on my my last nerve. He got on my last nerve because I'm like, buddy, I'm sort of. So here's the issue, right? And I agree with the premise. There's too many bracelets. There's 245 in a year. That's way too many. Wow. For me, the biggest travesty, and I didn't even play them because I almost felt like it would be embarrassing. And if I win one, people will go ballistic, is the WSOP.com bracelets where they're $300 buy-in, unlimited rebuys, and they're not really that big fields or whatever. And they go on for 2 months.
Just make them circuit rings.
There's 70 events. I didn't, like I said, I didn't play them. I was on the golf schedule, but eliminate. So what I said was, I think going from 245 to 100, the risk that he doesn't understand is this. We're going to have WSOP Europe. We've got Vegas. We've got Paradise. And then we've also got the GG Online series. Outside of Vegas, what you'll note is all those series are no limit hold'em series, sprinkle in a little PLO, no mixed, right? So if you want to cut 145 tournaments and you want to turn the summer series from 100 to 50, what do you think gets cut? It's not going to be the no limit hold'em fields that draw 2,000
Oh.
players. You're going to destroy mixed games if you do that, because how can you have a 1,500 stud, a 10K stud, a 15 triple draw, all that stuff? There's like 30, 40 events there that if you cut it down to 50 in the summer, if you're running a venue, right? You need to fill the seats.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
If you have a
And
tournament that gets
running a
100
business.
players that takes 3 days, and you could run one that gets 2,000 players, you kind of have to run that one. So I say, personally, leave the summer kind of as is. You can make some tweaks, but that's okay. I don't think anyone has an issue with the prestige of winning a summer bracelet. That's where everybody's there. It's fine. I think the big issue was, frankly, the WSOP.com ones, which is 70 bracelets right there that are, I mean, I see these guys I've never heard of. I'm like, oh, I got my 4th bracelet. I'm like, where? And the $300 Hyper Turbo Super Bounty. I'm like, okay, well, good for you. So, yeah. So yeah, I think the number, frankly, that we get to that would be real nice is 150. So you have your 90 to 100 during the summer. You have like 10 or 12 in Europe. You have another 10 or 12 in Paradise. And then you have like a 20 bracelet series on GG, which I'm fine with because that's spread out. It's not, it's like over almost 2 months, but it's one every like 2-3 days. They're not every day. They're not churning out multiple bracelets a day. And those get big fields and they're high buy-ins too, for the most part.
That makes sense. So you brought up GG, and one of the biggest things that kind of came up recently was the Ren Lin cheating scandal. And Ren Lin, I'm sure you feel very similarly to me, is an awesome person. I absolutely love the guy. He's so much fun to be at the table with. Everything about him I really like. And then to find out that he ghosted someone online at the 10K final table, and then he ends up getting is it a temporary ban? What's the situation with that?
1-year ban, I believe.
A one-year ban. Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know what happens past that, but he texts me and he says, because he always calls me coach. He's like, Coach, I make big mistake. Coach, help me. And then he told me what he did. And I was like, so here's the deal, right? And I wish people, when you say this, people get startled by it, but there are degrees of cheating. We agree, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is the softest you're going to find in terms of like, he didn't have any financial incentive. This is Ren. Ren, right? Ren is like, his buddy's there. He's like, I want to help him. Oh, no, don't call here. Don't call here, which used to be the case. You remember PCA guys in the lobby were playing and there's like 20 people yelling advice.
I played in the lobby, like 200, 400 PLO in the lobby.
If you made a deep run, you'd have like everybody there going, oh, dude, you should move in. This guy doesn't have it, whatever, right? Like, so it's obviously wrong. He knows it's wrong. He didn't have any financial gain. He's done literally everything he can at this point to pay the price for the lesson, and he is. So this isn't a case of like, I'm not saying that he should be absconded and that but he's paying the price. Like, he's getting suspended. He paid out of pocket money he didn't make. He's a good for poker type guy. This wasn't a good moment for him, but I don't believe by any stretch of the imagination that he had this nefarious idea. He was literally at the place where he's like, I want to help my buddy, because he's that type of guy. What he did is absolutely unequivocally wrong. I can condemn it and say, you can't do this. This is stupid. This is wrong. But when I look at the character of the man and, and also how he handled it, because I thought his apology and everything that he owned it. He's like, I screwed up. I'm not looking for sympathy.
In his apology, didn't he say something about like, I didn't know that it was a live thing. I thought it was a video.
I don't know. I don't remember that part, but I remember what I remember reading it, it just sounds like he took accountability. I made a mistake. What I did is wrong. I'll pay the money. I'm paying the money. I'll pay the fine. I'm barred for a while. I guess the question that comes up though for a lot of people is when you look at that sentence for this, and then we hear some other nefarious actors potentially who've done much worse, the
question becomes, is he getting it like a smaller slap on the wrist because he's so damn likable, as opposed to if he wasn't, would it be a different?
Well, I think what he's gotten is as heavy-handed as you can imagine. And I think one of the key reasons it's heavy-handed is because he's an ambassador, right? So you're a paid ambassador. You're working for a company. You can't do that. You need to know that, and he knows that. So this is, I hope people don't see this as me like, I'm not saying what he did was right. I'm saying I think he made a dumb idea, but not with any like, this isn't some conspiracy, big, like huge, intricate, stable. If this is just Ren helping his buddy, like, you know what I mean? Like,
it's a one-off.
Yeah. And maybe he's done it before, and maybe like this is common amongst some stables and things like that. And, there was a time, I remember there was a guy who won a bracelet, I think online. He was a grandpa, And he was playing online, and his 2 sons are there, rooting him on, and like probably telling him, don't call because it was sort of a group thing. But like, do we look at Grandpa and think, wow, Grandpa is like the biggest cheater ever? It's just one of those. Again, it's one of the softer versions of collusion because it's also very difficult to enforce too. I remember many years ago, Jay Carver, in the Dirty Basement, he asked me to come over and sweat him playing mixed games, right? And like, I found it very, very difficult to do in real time because anything I say will affect the action, right? And even if I say it kind of at the end of the hand, it affects the rest of the players at the table going forward. But so yeah, it's a slippery slope. But listen, I think the ultimate, what you see here in the end though, is like GG is not messing around. Clearly, they're like, that's a no tolerance. If they're willing to do that to him, right? And recently they caught somebody else at a final table, got rid of them, banned them, returned the funds. Like, you have 2 choices as an operator. You can be like, shh, don't tell nobody that stuff's going on, and we'll hide it. Or you bring it to the surface. You say, listen, we caught people. It does happen, but when it does, we will catch them, right? And so, people are going to look at that 2 different ways. I look at the bright side of that and say, they're being transparent. This isn't a...
I think every poker site should say, hey, we rounded up 30 bots this last 3 months. We refunded this much money to players. We are actively making your poker site, whichever one it is, right? GG or ACR or others, a better, safer place for you. I think that should be publicized and celebrated. Yeah.
Well, and that's obviously GG's policy. I mean, we made one big sweeping one where I think it was 60 accounts were found, right? And like, as we know, right? Cheating just didn't start when online poker happened. Cheating's been around forever, right? Became more sophisticated. But anytime you're dealing with large sums of money, there's always going to be nefarious actors. They're going to think like, well, how can I, how can I Chauncey Billups?
How can I get more money?
Like you're seeing it in sports too, with a lot of these player props and things like that. The difference now, though, I think with good operators who care is they're going to see it as like, okay, it's certainly a problem, but it's the most important problem for them from an integrity perspective. So they have to spend, a maximum amount of resources to police it. And the fact that like you said, the fact that they keep coming out with people, that's not to say, oh my God, they're, don't play there. It's actually, no, play there because they're getting rid of those people.
Yeah,
right?
I think it's good.
And they're actively protecting your money.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. All right, let's go a couple lighter ones. What do you think the current best way to study poker tournaments is?
Yeah, so I think today you have such a wide variety of ways of learning, right? I think books are a little bit outdated, right? Especially, the attention spans of people today. But I think like one like easy way, and obviously you want to pick a streamer that you feel like, has some chops or whatever. But even if not, watching somebody play poker on, on one of these streams and sort of getting a vibe for like what they did, why they did it, and then ask yourself, well, does that make sense to you? And if not, why not? And also what I would do is this, if when you're watching these people, let's say Chance was streaming, okay, ask yourself, what would you do in this situation? Okay. Chance did something different. Why did he, so maybe Chance did something better. Maybe he did something worse. So after you see Chance do something different, ask yourself, why did Chance do that? And do you still support your decision in what you did? Or do you think this is better? I think that's a good way to learn. Obviously there's study tools available with solvers and things like that, getting coaching, I think, but ultimately, and watching footage of like that, because I mean, that's what Adrian Mateos did. Like he watched he literally said this, like he said this, he's like, I watch all the solver kids and I just copy. I copy what they do, you know what I mean? Like he just learned from them, so there are multiple ways. I think it's important too for poker's longevity for people to not think that in order to be successful at poker today, it requires you spending 16 hours studying, solver outputs.
No.
Maybe if you want to be an online pro, I don't know if that's necessarily true because it's not my world. But if you want to play live poker, there's other things you can study. And like I said, getting a coach. Like I said, I've recommended you and Alex because I think you guys have you have an approach where you're going to explain theory, but not being the gospel end all. You're going to allow people to think for themselves and really teach people how to think.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Like solvers are good, but if you don't understand why the solver's doing what it's doing, you're fucked.
When I do poker, when I teach, right, sometimes I'll give away a lesson, I have people come. What I do is I let them play the hand, and then I turn the cards face up, And then I say, they say, okay, so you raised here. I said, why? Just tell me why. Like, they might have done something right or wrong. I want to hear the why. And then the logic sometimes, doesn't make any sense, and we work through that. But like understanding, thinking about why you're doing things. And like you said, there's so many examples of like solver guys who so narrow-minded and not seeing that, like, oh, I have to defend here like 50% of my range. I'm like, yeah, but not against Uncle Bob.
You don't.
Uncle Bob
Let him have it.
has 0 bluffs, bro. You're not playing against Mikita Bajikowski where you have to defend something. So I think the best players are the ones that understand theory, understand how people are applying theory, but they just divert from it. So they just make such massive exploits, and they look to just go, they're willing to do things that solvers would go, huh? That's terrible. Okay, well, you're not
I
playing.
got a fun hand I played recently that you'll love.
I'm sure.
Plus one opens.
Crazy, I bet.
No, it's really, I made a fold actually. Plus one opens off 30 big blinds. It was like a table off the money at Bay 101, and like I had queens in the cutoff. I didn't really think he'd stack off worse, so I flat, whatever, no big deal. Button, small blind, big blind call. I have red queens. Comes 9, 3 deuce, 2 spades. Checks to the under the gun guy. There's 55K in the middle. Keep in mind, I have 700,000. I have a massive stack at 5K big blind. And he c-bets 17,000 into 55. I fold. He did some stuff where I was just like, he's not doing this with Jackson 10s. This guy has aces, kings, or a set. He wouldn't do it with the flush draw. I don't think, like, he just had it, right? And I fold, and the big blind stacks him with 9 deuce off, and he had aces. But it's like a solver would have just 3-bet got it in. I lost 2 big blinds.
Well, so here's the thing, and this happened to me actually from another guy that I won't mention, watched me play a hand on stream and mocked it because it's so not GTO, and it's losing like, and it's losing like $2,300, and they happen to say that because it ended up being, an incorrect fold, right? And I'm thinking of the bigger picture and how, like, when I do that, like if I do that 100 times, 98 times, it's going to be good, right? But the biggest mistake you can do when you're judging a poker player's skill is find a hand they played bad and just that's them, right? Because what you'll end up doing is you will be blind to all the really, really good things that they do that you aren't seeing, right? Yeah. Ted Forrest used to say it to me. He said most poker players compare their A game to everybody else's F game.
Oh, interesting.
When the reality is your A game is nowhere near as good as you're not always playing it, first of all. And, just because someone has an F game doesn't mean that their A game isn't just as good as yours, if not better.
Yeah, I like that a lot, actually. You mentioned...
one last thing on that topic, because it's super important.
Keep going.
If you and I play a hand, okay? We go deep in the streets, right? Everyone judging or commenting on it is going to have these comments about who did what right and who did what wrong. But who the only 2 people that have full information on this hand? You and I. They don't know the hand we played 3 years ago or 2 years ago that created this scenario. They don't know the dynamic that we have with each other, right? So they don't understand the deviation that I took or that you took because they don't have access to the same database that we do. So they're speaking from a limited place of understanding. The fold that I made was an example of that. It was against Jesse Lonis, and we had a lot of history, and I had my reasons for wanting to, play this hand in the way that I did against him for a long-term game, for long game as well, right? But if you just look at each poker hand as like in a vacuum, yes, there's a lot of value. There's a lot of value even in the hand like I just mentioned. You and me play a goofy. We can look at that and go, oof, these are bad plays. This is wrong. What should be the correct play? And then maybe if you're really a good poker player and a critical thinker, ask, then why the hell did Chance do that? And why did Daniel do that? What could be the reasoning for that? What were the exploit that Chance was looking for, or what was Daniel? And that's when I think poker evolves past right and wrong answers because solver says.
Yeah, I like that a lot, actually. Good answer. All right. Who are the top 5 best poker players in history? And you're not allowed to put yourself on the list.
Oh, I wouldn't have anyway. But for me, I'm a little bit biased because I'm a player that grew up, and it's probably outdated in my view because I grew up where the pinnacle was Bobby's Room mixed games. If you didn't play high stakes mixed games, you don't qualify, right? You could be the bet like Adrian Mateos, right? many said for at least a period of time, among the best or among the best,
I think he's
only
the
one game.
toughest.
Yeah, he's a one game, but he's a one trick pony, right? So he
Mm-hmm.
doesn't qualify for my list, right? So I can't use him. But up there for me, because I think also too, when I'm judging this, I'm judging by era. And Michael Jordan said this many times. It's really difficult to compare by era because the information that Chip Reese had available to him during his era. Yeah. If you take somebody from our era, put them back there, how do you know they would have been better than Chip without the solvers, et cetera, et cetera?
Without
so Chip
being
Reese
taught. Everyone else back then taught themselves.
Exactly. Like what was his name? Bobby Fischer was asked that about chess. It's like compare the chess players from 1905. He's like, you can't compare them because in 1905 nobody had an engine, right? They just had their own ideas. They didn't, now they do. So, but who's a better chess player? Well, obviously the newer guys will win, but put them in the same era with the same amount of tools, and that's a different story. So that's why I have Chip Reese there because I played with him. I remember. I've got Phil Ivey there too because Phil Ivey dominated at everything, dominated all the mixed. Online, he was on there playing against all the Wizards and he was crushing their tournaments, you name it. He was a killer.
I remember Phil Galfond talked about Ivy when he was like taking a shot and playing him heads up. And they like took a break for the day. So Phil went, did all the like the rock, paper, scissors adjustments of like, all right, he was doing this, so I'm going to do this. He was doing that, I'm going to do this. And came in and Ivy already adjusted. I knew he was going to make those adjustments and already had a new game plan. And I mean, it's just...
Ivy told me when he used to sit, right, online, he always told me this. He said when he sat and played with a guy, the other guy had always had an advantage over him because fundamentally, the players he was playing against were better than him. They were much better fundamentally. But the longer they played, when Phil figured them out, they were done. So he would start out losing, but then always, for the most part, come back and end up a winner once he figured out what they were doing. He was doing things back then that he was check raising, I think, 20% of flops. That's a lot.
It's even more than solvers are like 15 these days,
yeah.
right?
Well, maybe it made sense at the time. I don't know, but he's always willing, like you said, to. One of my favorite stories was when he was in a pot against Kuhn online and he called him on the phone. Do you know about this?
I've heard this, yeah, but you should tell it. It's a great story, yeah.
Phil's playing and he's on the river, and Jason bet all in against him, whatever. And he calls him. He's like, "Hey, I can't see the river. Can you see it? Whatever." He's like, "My computer froze or whatever." And he wanted to hear his voice to get a read if he sounded nervous or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Phil Ivey, Phil Ivey, Chip Reese. There's a bunch of other ones. I don't know that like. Off the top of my head, I want to put them all in the 5. There's names. I'll just give you names that come to mind, for me. Patrick Antonius, Jungle Man, Ray Decardani, David Oppenheim.
Ray's the guy who's like the best at Raz, right?
Well, no, he's a good just mixed game. He's
just
great
really
at actually Omaha 8 or better is probably his forte. And yeah, he's one of those guys that sort of does this thing where like in limit poker, it's kind of annoying. Like you bet the river and he thinks for like a minute in limit poker and raises you and has the nuts.
You sure you want me to play the 50K PPC?
No. It's a rarity. Don't worry. But yeah, there's like, again, it's been a while since I've been in those games, but I'm always going to pick the mixed game players because like I said, I think when I think of poker, if I think of no limit hold'em, it'll probably be a different list, but I don't spend a lot of time. I know that's a popular thing, like the top 5s, but they're so ultimately like opinion based, and a lot of it has to do too with your personal interactions with people. You mentioned a guy earlier that you don't like having at your table. I like having. I'm not going to say who. You say you don't like having at your table. I do because he plays terrible against me. Absolutely, just punts. Plays horrendous against me. I'll text you later.
I said it on the podcast.
Yeah, he's absolute.
Then you can say it.
He's a train wreck against me. I mean, just absolutely plays. So again, a lot of it has to do sometimes with how you match up with people too, right?
Matchup is really big.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but my perception sometimes with you is you play psychological warfare at a table to the point where you often will choose a guy and make it personal with that guy. Not in a mean way, but you want to make it personal with this guy where it's like mano a mano. All right, we're going to alpha fight this and we're going to go to war. And like you guys are going to both have these big stacks and all of a sudden Chance is going to have a really big stack.
I do think that like in the past, I've had problems with like, if this guy's the table captain, I'm like, no, I want to be the table captain and like gone to war with them. And now that I'm a little bit older, a little bit wiser, I would say that not as much. But yeah, I mean,
But you still do it verbally, though. I watch you.
Yes.
I know what you're doing. Even if you're not going to do it with your play, we're actually going to battle with this guy. You're going to mess with his brain psychologically to create the dynamic, of like, oh man, if you bet the river, I was just going to jam. Meanwhile, you were never going to jam. Right? You tell the guy this, and that puts it in his head. So now you've planted the seed where, well, Chance might jam in this spot. Maybe Chance will never jam in this spot, but he's got that in his brain now.
Maybe I will.
Maybe you will. Maybe exactly. The whole point is you're comfortable in that arena where you're making them guess, and I like that. I like the leveling aspect. I like the
It's
well, am I
fun.
telling the truth or am I lying? It's
Yeah.
fun. That's what poker used to be, kind of.
Because it really is leveling. It's like, because he said that, will he never do it, or will he actually do it? Because if they can come to the right conclusion, then they would have a significant edge. But if they come to the wrong conclusion, then I do.
Like, I'm forced to play the leveling game because there's so much evidence of me on TV saying things where people, like, I got caught. I'll tell you, I got caught on a bluff by what the heck's the guy? I can't remember his name all of a sudden. The pothead, Martin Zamani. So he caught me. It was a PLO bluff, right? Where I bet the river, I was bluffing, and he tanked for a long time. He used a couple time banks, and he's like, well, talk to me. What do you think I have? And I was like, ace queen, it was like a queen high board or whatever like that. I think you have ace queen, right? And then he snap called and said, last time you called somebody's hand like that, you couldn't beat it. Because he remembered me saying to a guy, was like, I think you have aces or kings, raise. And I couldn't beat aces or kings.
Yeah,
but he had that in his memory. So I'm like, dang it. I forgot.
That's
So that's the hard part, is when you've got so much stuff out there,
Yeah.
you don't know when you're saying something, what you're giving away against sharp people like, he was in that spot.
It's funny you say that he used something old against you, because there's something that happened at a WSOP final table in the last 10 years. I'm not going to be too specific, because I have a plan against you in a big pot to do something that someone did. And you weren't even at the table, but I'm like, I'd be surprised if Daniel didn't see this, and I'm going to use it. I'm like, who do I want to use this against, and what level? How will it be received, as strong or weak? And then I plan to use it.
I'll tell you, with you, Chance, I never take anything on the surface.
I got you when we first played. It was probably 15 years ago.
But with you, like my general, like with you, is if I'm unsure what the heck level you're going on, I'm just going to try to play the hand well. You know what I mean?
Do you remember the blind versus blind pot we played in the 10K Bellagio 5 diamond back in the day? Where
I think this is the one where you said something about your chips fumbling. See, I remember.
I river a straight and I bet 47K, and the dealer goes 27,000. I go, no, it's 47, or no, it's more than that. And you go, call. And I go, did you call?
Yes. Because see, you acted well. Tobey Maguire got me with a similar one. Acting is a thing. Like, Tobey Maguire's an actor, right? So years ago, we're at the Commerce, and we're playing cash, and he bet the river. He went, and I started counting my cash like I'm gonna call, and he goes for his cards to flip them over, like this, and I'm like,
the change.
What does that mean, right?
Yeah.
He's obviously very excited to show his hand because he's got the nuts and he can't wait to collect my money. So I fold my hand smartly, and he turns over absolutely nothing.
I've got that way too.
You've got that way?
100%. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. There's lots of tricks out there. And again, like you said, some of us enjoy that and others are just going to ignore it all. So it's kind of a waste of time. If you're doing it against somebody who's just completely a studious solver type person, it really doesn't matter what you do, because they're not paying attention anyway, for the most part.
And I would give people advice of, like, unless you know how your opponent is going to perceive what you're putting out there, whether it's physically or verbally or whatever, just don't do anything.
Agreed. I tell people the same thing. Unless you feel like you're dominant in the psychological warfare game. Like when I'm in the pot with Phil Ivey, I don't say anything. I don't have a discussion with Phil Ivey. I just shut up and stare.
You don't call him on the phone?
He doesn't notice. Yeah. Right? So again, I think one of the valuable things about, or one of the important skills too, is when you play poker, is to get a sense of like who's actually paying attention to this stuff and who's not. Right? And when you're up against people who are not, it should make you a little more comfortable to start maybe doing it with them, because you're not worried about them seeing through it, because of the way that they're thinking about and approaching the game.
Yeah. I do stuff on rivers when I go all in. And sometimes I'll like look around at the table and see who's mean mugging me. And then I'll shove. And if I get called, I'm like, okay, he's going to know that I did this before I shoved and either was bluffing or had it. And it's just that, like you said, the psychological warfare is like, clearly one of my favorite aspects of the game. I know you love it as well.
Yeah. And I think, anyone who sort of poo-poos this sort of stuff as like angle shooting or whatever, and it's crazy to me because poker is about deception, right?
Yeah.
So even like, for example, if you threw in a crazy amount that looks like a misclick, okay? This is up to you to decide, is it real or not, right?
Yes.
Like, so I can act, I can do what I want, but ultimately it's up to you to decipher because what I'm doing is I'm making a bet to create deception. Did I mean to do that or did I not mean to do that? There's nothing wrong with this, to sort of like decry that as like an angle shoot is like misapplying the term. It's just, you know what I mean? Like,
you're the only player in 18 years of playing professional poker that I have gotten and done the intentional misclick on.
Oh, you have? And it worked?
Well, you and I were playing in the Poker Go studio, 10K, and it was during your limping era, and we had fish at the table.
Oh, yes,
limping.
I remember Queen Jack suited.
Yes, and I just kept misclicking, and I was like, holy shit, like, I have to, like, fix this, right? And I kept, like, real misclicking. And so you limp under the gun at 3K big blind, and I'm on the button with jacks. I'm wearing a hat, and I'll do the hoodie to give kind of, like, what I did. Pretend this is, like, the bill of my hat. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to pretend I didn't see it. And I raised to 7,500, like a standard button size. And when the blinds fold, I grabbed my 7,500 back and you go, I limped.
Yeah. So here's the funny thing about that, because I have Queen Jack suited, right? And obviously, so if you think about that, let's say, for example, I knew Chance didn't know I'd limped. Well, his button range is really wide. It's going to be a whole bunch of hands that are going to fold to my jam, right? Obviously, if I know he's setting me up, it's fine. But I also have a pretty good hand to do it with.
Yeah, you did.
Like, it ended up being, close.
I couldn't believe you were 40%. That was like, that was one I didn't know. I was like,
38
what?
or 39%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy how close, hand equities are. But yeah, so that's a perfect example of, like you said, you knew that I was paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
You knew that I'd noticed that. And it was a very believable misclick.
Yeah.
Right. It looked like a misclick. So I fell for it, but it was also the rebuy period. So
you were like, that was good. You were such a good sport. And you didn't make me feel bad at all. No. And like, I've told that story probably like, I don't know, 10 or 15 times and you get very mixed responses. Some people think it's scummy. And I'm like, I'd misclicked 6 times. So you're supposed to tell me that every time I misclick, you just get to take the money. Like I misclicked at day 101. We're under the gun raised and I put in a chip and said raise and I had to click it and I got ripped on. And it's like, okay, so maybe I should have some balance to my misclicks. And even Osmus said that he's been misclicking a lot lately. Like he said this like a month or 2 ago. He's like, maybe I should add in a strong one.
I did this in the $1 million one drop. If you remember, they had like 5K chip, 10K chip, 20K chip, like all these goofy chips. There was like so many chips, right? So it's raised and flatted and we're really deep. Okay. And I'm in the big blind with aces. And I meant to make like a real raise. I min click. I min raise. And now I get 2 calls.
Wait, is this intentional or accidental misclick?
No, accident.
Okay.
Like a legit misclick. And the flop comes like 8-6 deuce. And I'm thinking in my head, oh my God, please no. Right? Because like that's a flop. I'm very, deuces, 6s, and 8s are all there. 8-6 is
8-6
there.
suited.
Like, all the hands are there. So I'm just like, please, Lord, everyone just fold when I see bet this flop.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But again, I think that's like, so that one, like to me, what you're doing is you're deceiving your opponent into like, how much did you really mean to bet? That's just poker. That's deception. For example, in limit hold'em, I used to use this trick all the time, way back when I was a professional limit hold'em player. On the turn, if a guy checks to me, right, I'd go to my stack to grab my chips and I'd look out of the corner of my eye. And if he's going like this, ready to put the call in, I'm not betting. I mean, what the heck? Do I need to like not? So basically, I'm paying attention,
Yeah.
Like
Hellmuth grabs his bet every single time, puts it to the side, and looks at the guy before putting it in or checking.
Yeah.
It's just part of the game.
Yeah, all those things are. I mean, obviously, angle shooting is an issue, but that's not one of the things that I think fall into that category at all.
I agree. All right. Recently, Seth Davies went on like a rant kind of about the high rollers and like it doesn't take 12 million. A lot of us are winning a lot. You don't really play the Tritons. So what's your take on his opinion?
Okay, so first and foremost, the information was just shared initially by Nick Petrangelo, who is respected, you know, he was on a podcast and he sort of mentioned that, you know, he's buried 5 million. And he mentioned, because I didn't calculate it, I went based off of his number. She said, if you played them all, right, which very few people do, but there's maybe a handful. I don't know.
Yeah.
It'd be like 12 million to play all the high rollers. That's how many there were, right, in a year. So the point of my post was to sort of explain to people that when you see these big numbers, guy cashes $4 million, doesn't necessarily mean they even won. Like I remember a few guys, I won't name them because there's no point, but like that would cash for a big number and it looks impressive and like they must have had a good year, but they fired 5 rebuys in the 250K at Triton, all this sort of stuff. And so the mirage in itself is the idea that like when someone cashed for 7 million, that means they made $7 million. That's not true. Okay. So what he did was he did a video, which was really strange because in the video, he has a clip of me saying something and then literally says what I did not say. Okay. First of all, I didn't say all. He literally lied about what I said and he shared the video evidence of what I said. Okay. Some. And I said, most of them don't play that much, but you know, maybe like a handful. I don't know the right number. Maybe it's 3, maybe it's 10. I don't know. But secondarily, I don't think they're all losers. I think there's plenty of guys who win, but I think when you look at the whole group as an entity, right? Each year you're going to have some guys that hit big, but for every, you know, Mateos and Foxen year, you're going to have like some other guys who lost 3 million and 4 million and a big group of them because it goes quickly, right? So when I think of the collective, yes, of course, the cream of the crops making money and the best players have equity here. But then you factor in addition to that, you know, people typically sell pieces. There's travel expenses. There's a lot of ancillary aspects to what it was. And what I was suggesting was the dream doesn't have to be that if you're a professional tournament player. You can play the mid stakes 5Ks, 1500 was a much better ROI for all of yourself. And I'm not saying you necessarily make as much, but you know, you're lower risk and it's probably easier too, right? In order to be, and I know you've played in those streets a lot, like the 3K buy-in, 5K buy-in, and do quite well.
I mean, I had 18 million in earnings before I ever had $1 million score.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so ultimately, this wasn't me poo-pooing these players at all.
Yeah. Not
at all. Obviously, like I said earlier, like I learned from them. You know, I have a lot of respect for people that are in the streets grinding, whatever. This was me, you know, pulling back the curtain. And what I said, the premise of it, maybe I got the numbers a little wrong or whatever, but the premise is true. Okay. There's a bit of a mirage when you look at someone's Hendon mob and it says $5 million. It doesn't mean they made $5 million. Duh. Right. In fact, often, or in, you know, many cases, they lost money. So that was the point of it, you know, and sort of referencing the mirage. And just also the other point of it too was because it astonished me that the number was 12 million, because I remember when I started and in the first tweet that I put up, it was like the whole year would be like 200K, like 250, right? In the late 90s. And that grew 10Ks, you know, and all of a sudden, you know, at the highest stakes now you've got, you know, you could potentially, and this would require you playing the PLOs, the short deck, the World Series, the Triton, all of them, right? And again, like I said, maybe Ike, Chad Chidwick, and a few others, you know, maybe play a schedule that big. But yeah, the point still stands. And I don't know. He wouldn't. Yeah.
Why don't you play the Tritons?
I'm going to play the ones in Bahamas.
Will that be your first?
No, I played the Tritons at Bahamas last year. I played the Invitational and I played the main. I played with you, dummy.
Well, I know, but like you don't travel and play the European ones or the Asian ones.
I don't travel at all, man. I'm at that stage in my life where, like, you know, when you're young, you want to play everything. You got to hit every spot. You're in the fire. So you look at Mateos, you look at Jesse Lonis. They're trying to make it. You know what I mean? I made it, bro. I'm good. I'm 51. I shot 78 the other day. That's my new freaking. I mean, come on, right? I'm a guy. Like, this is the.
We got to get a golf. We got to get a golf bet, Dan. We got it.
Yeah, for sure. We'll do it.
I need the fire.
First of all, I don't love to travel. Yeah. In addition to that, for me at my age, not that I'm old, but for me, because I have success and I don't need to play poker, right? I need to want to play. If I don't want to play, I'm not very good. Like, I can be very bad at poker if I just kind of go through the motions and don't really care, right? So for me, often, like, I'm like kind of excited about Bahamas now because I've taken such a long break that I kind of like the feeling of sitting down, hand one, and being a little nervous and a little uncomfortable. I like it.
You're not going to be nervous and uncomfortable.
No, but I like that feeling of like not remembering what I'm doing, because what it also does too, it requires me to focus more. Yeah. I pay more attention I'm going to get, because I'm like remembering things as we go. You know what I mean? For me at my age, like training for Bahamas isn't spending time studying the game itself. It's getting my mindset right to wanting to play, against the beasts. And, I'm going to do my own thing. Like you predicted it and you were right when I played the pro side that I was going to use a limp strategy, and I did. And I ended up,
that wasn't even close.
yeah, but it worked. Like I did. I mean, I ended up bagging pretty good. And I got Juan Pardo to bluff it off against me a couple times. I got in trouble on, with late in day 2, whatever the case may be, but neither here nor there.
He folded this crazy top pair to me. Do you remember that one?
I'm not sure I do.
I raised like Queen X suited in the cutoff. He calls button, big blind calls. And it comes King Jack 10 rainbow. And he has like King 5 suited. And I just bet small. You were the big blind. And
yes, I remember that now.
I bet small and he just folds. And I was just like,
I remember that. Like you called pre and then you just folded flop.
Like,
yes, I remember.
And I get it. Like he's known for making the hero calls, the hero folds. And in his seat, he's probably like, what are the odds that Chance is betting a hand that he can't barrel? And then I just have this hand that I'm going to be in no man's land on the turn, river, whatever. So like, I get why you folded. It was just like very surprising.
I'll tell you what my exploit against him was. And it worked so good. And I'll tell you because he knows, obviously, now. But like, I know that he bluffs a lot. And I know he's willing to go for it, right? So I was literally looking for spots.
Oh, the 8's hand. I remember now.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. I want to say, I basically set him up with a blocker size in order to, I did it to him twice, right? To just make him turn hands that could call into a bluff because he knows I'm marginally value betting something similar. And then I snapped him off. Like the 8's hand was I don't remember the exact board, but I had King 10 of spades, I remember, and it came like 10-9, 2 hearts. The turn was like a 7, and then the river was like a brick or something smaller. Like, and I bet again.
Oh, it was a 7 on the river, 7 paired.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So now he has 2 8s, and he's like, shit. I don't think these are good because Daniel's value betting something better, but I guess I have to bluff now, right?
And it's like he forgot to ask himself, will Daniel fold a better hand that he value bets?
Well, I mean, some of the time, but I ended up having to, and this is where I say that I learned enough about theory to incorporate that old school strategy with also using the right combo. The combo that I had specifically was King 10 of spades, which blocked both. I mean, it blocked 10-9 both ways. Like, because 10-9 is one of the value hands he could have raised me with. Because I don't know that the board paired, but anyway. But I used the right combo to do it with. That was kind of what I was thinking. I'm like, if I bet, and I also, as I'm betting, I'm like, I'm betting to call off. I'm not betting here to like see what he does. And that's another lesson for people when you play poker. When you make a bet, okay, you should be thinking about what you do if that bet gets jammed on. And if you don't know and you have no idea what you're going to do, don't bet.
And for 90% of people watching this playing low stakes, you fold.
Yes.
When you bet and you get raised on the river, just fold. Close your eyes and fold. Most people do not bluff the river. Do not bluff raise the river. Sorry.
No question. But yeah, no, I mean, it's obviously the number one, sort of lesson there really is when it comes to thinking, much like chess, is you need to be thinking about what this will, and also like how you're perceived and what this bet will be perceived by, and what will he do with different parts of his range, right? And I was pretty certain because as played, I think I 3-bet him from the small with King 10 suited, so there was very unlikely that I could ever have a nutted hand. I mean, I can have a mediocre, I could have jacks or queens or, but I could have overpairs, but it's like probably a 10.
You bet 2 streets. You either bet flop and river or turn and river, and it was just a spot where like you couldn't really be nutted anymore, especially with the sizing.
Yeah, it was like pretty small on each street, whatever. But again, that's like, I was thinking in terms of like, I know what I'm up against, and I know that he's willing to go for it. And if he has it, he has it. Sometimes when you do this, you're going to get a bit, he's just going to have it sometimes. But like, as long as you're thinking, and this is why I think poker will never die, because this is a great player, right? He's definitely like more accomplished than I am in terms of like modern poker. He's better than me at no limit hold'em, okay, today. But I knew how to handle this situation using wisdom, not out theorying him, not out GTOing, huh?
I said using wisdom under my breath.
Because wisdom, like you're 30 years old.
I
right?
know.
Like,
I liked the way you said it. It was great.
Yeah. And that's one of the benefits, I think, of like having the 30 years experience that I do, but also, like I said, fully respecting how savage these young guys are and how hard they go and how much they learn and learning from them. But I got to find my way. I got to find tricks and trinkets to throw at them that they're not accustomed to. Because number one, that's fun for me. And number two, I've had a lot of success with that.
Yeah. Let's talk before that tournament, because there's some pros that just will go crazy when it's the group of pros and group of recreationals. And there's some like Juan Pardo, for example, who actually played incredibly tight last year relative to who he is as a player. I think we could probably discuss some day one plans against the opponents.
Yeah. I mean, and also, like you said, though, even on the pro side, not all pros are created equal, right? So a lot of pros are going to approach things differently, like you said. So, the correct strategy. That I kind of went with the limping. So for me, what I thought was the best way to go is to play sort of like a passive limp strat, keep pots small for the most part.
You wanted to increase the frequency in which you got to play with the businessmen.
Yes, that's one way to put it, right? I'm playing less big pots and whatnot. And also, to some degree, when you incorporate a limping strategy, oddly enough, you end up sort of taming people a little bit because you create this sort of passive multi-way pot spot where like you might bluff me, but you can bluff 5 people, 4 people. So what it does, it ends up kind of making the game a little more honest to some degree. Like if you have a 5-way pot and it comes like 9-8-4, someone who bets from the blind is gonna have something.
I always tell my students that people don't fight as hard for multi-way pots.
It's true. Yeah. So you tame them, and you also put them in situations that like there are no solvers for like a 4-way limp pot in the big blind with 10-6-0 on like 10-5-3. What do?
You brain solve that shit.
So that's my point, right? So you take all these guys who study, and now I've let them play 10-6-0.
And I was stoked that you were limping because I'm like, sweet, we get to play small pots. This is great.
Good for you too.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. But that's the thing is like, who's studying that? A 4-way limp pot with 10-6 on 10-5-3. Do they know the answer? No. So now what do I force them to do? I'm forcing them to sort of figure it out on their own, right? And that's
forcing them to think instead of regurgitate.
Exactly. They can't look at the board and go, this spot I'm supposed to bet 33% of the time, you can't do that anymore. You have to actually go, I don't know, what do I do here? And again, the passivity, there's other things too that I've sort of given away too much, and Amanda gets mad when I talk about it too much because there's other benefits to the limp strat that really help. They suit me well, a little more PLO-esque, a little more short deck-esque.
Oh, I thought of this earlier and forgot. Pop quiz. Who is a 2-time bracelet winner, made a deep run in last year's main, plays primarily medium to like high stakes online cash, no limit these days, and played a pure limp strategy in the WSOP main this year, pre-flop. It's the same strategy he uses in his cash games.
Wasn't Dominic Nice, right?
No, he mixes. He does limp, min, 3.5.
So there's a guy who has 2 bracelets, made a deep run, and used exclusive limp strat?
And okay, you want another hint?
Yeah.
He won the WSOP main event as one of his 2.
Joe Cotta? No, or Greg Merson?
Oh, yeah, Greg Merson.
Greg Merson. Yeah, Greg Merson.
And he said that it just like makes people so uncomfortable. Like they don't know what to think of your range. And so you find spots you limp, someone ISOs, someone calls, you start limp raising, right? Like it just gives you a lot of power and puts them in an uncomfortable position.
So here's the thing, right? What you said, and I'm going to tell you, I'll just say it because whatever, we're friends, and I'll tell the world, whatever, because they don't know how to do it exactly.
Hey, don't tell them. Tell me.
No, I'm gonna tell. So here's the thing, right? You talked about like sometimes passivity is power, like passivity is power, right? So in a spot where I limp under the gun, and the button limps and the blinds check, the blinds call, right? And it comes like, deuce, deuce, deuce. Or no, maybe not deuce, deuce, deuce. I don't know, like who has range advantage on a 8-3 deuce board?
The nut advantage goes to the big blind, but the medium strength advantage goes to the under the gun player.
Right. So the only player in that spot that's going to
concept where when you limp under the gun and no one else raises, you're the only player that's uncapped. And so you can still have all of the overpairs while they would have ISO'd you with an overpair.
Yeah. And I can also have the nut limping
too.
Like, actually, you know what? I kind of had because if I'm limping with 8s threes and deuces on it, let's say it's an 8-3 deuce flop. I'm limping with pairs there too, right?
Yeah.
Where the blind is going to have infinite, except the blind is not going to have any of the top, right? The big blind has none of the top because they're going to raise aces, kings, queen, whereas I can have all that, but my range is condensed. I don't have 7 deuce and 8-3 off, but I do have pocket deuces, pocket threes, pocket eights as a reasonably, a bigger percentage of my range than they do. So even though, they're going to have they're going to have 2 pairs I don't have, I'm going to have more sets than they do. And I'm going to have more over pairs. And it's a position of power. And it's also, like I said, you were right. People don't fight as much for these pots. So I get to, like act as though I raised before the flop.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't. And you know what else it does? If it goes raise, re-raise, whatever, I saved a couple chips. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot to it.
When, like most people, I'm actually not in this camp, but the majority of people are, where when they do not know what your range is, they lean fold. So they'll check call. We're going to use this 8-3 deuce board. They'll check call the deuce or the 3, even the 8 sometimes. The turn's a jack. They check and you bet again. And they're just going to massively overfold the turn because they don't know what you have. And that's like one of the really fun aspects of playing the limp strategy is the uncertainty leads them to playing like tight.
What I also like about it too is I like playing post flop, and what it does is it changes the stack to pot ratio, which is another, obviously much more of a pot limit Omaha concept, right? Where if you're the best player in the PLO table, you want to play as deep as possible on turns and rivers, right? Well, one way to do that is to keep the pot smaller early so that, you have more decisions and the stacks just don't go in on the flop, right? So that's another, I don't like limp strat short stack. I know there's a thing to it because a lot of like Dominic and some of these guys off 15, off 20 bigs, they're like limping. I don't do that. Partly why is because, so let's say when you're playing like 100, everyone's like 100 big blinds deep, right? Like early tournament. Is winning the blinds like worth that much to you? It's very insignificant to pick up 2.5 bigs, right? It's not the most important function of a raise, right? However, when you have 20 big blinds, picking up 2.5 is pretty damn big.
It's sweet.
Right? So like the fold equity aspect is more important when the blinds matter to me. But when I have 100 or 200 big blinds, what do I give a shit about these crumbs? I don't care about the 2 big blinds. I'm trying to win 100 off the fish. Who doesn't, you know what I mean? Like I'm trying to play a big pot,
You need that fish to overlimp with the king 7-0 and flop a 7.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, so the next question, I want you to separate your answer into the golden era and the solver era. So who's the toughest opponent that you've faced?
Okay.
You got to go old school first.
Phil Ivey. It's going to be my old school guess.
Nice.
And I'd say today, probably because I have the most reps with him and he's in your face a lot and he's pretty tough, is your buddy, Mr. Foxen.
Alex, yeah.
Yes. I find him, because
I thought
here's
you
the
might
thing.
pick him, actually.
I did. And like a lot of people go a different way with it, but like I typically don't pick the ones who stick to like theoretical, laws. They're not that, they don't scare me. You know what I mean? Like I know they're capable of doing a bunch of stuff, but Alex at any point, he might call me when I run this like bluff that everyone else folds to. You know what I mean? Like he might triple, double barrel. There's so many things that he's capable of doing. He's always in your face. He's always intimidating. He's paying attention. He's looking at you. He's got that death stare. He's an imposing figure. And like, he's tough. Like he's not easy. Like I don't find him an easy guy to read in terms of like, any physical tells. He's pretty stable.
I have one, but it's not super reliable.
I mean, I have some tendencies in my book in terms of things that I noticed that he'll do in terms of like the way, you'll bet a hand or whatever. But as far as like physical reads, I'm not going down that route. And again, I find him to be tough because in a way, and this is a compliment, sometimes he just kind of looks sloppy. Okay? Looks like he's just in there sometimes. Like, the hell, man? What's he doing? How's he raise button or that, whatever? Like he's just kind of like, not like his demeanor's not flaring, but like the way he's playing his hands looks like he's going, but that's much more difficult to play than people who will do things that you expect them to do.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. All right. Well, we're getting towards the end. What do you want your legacy to be in poker?
I'll tell you what, that's something that I used to care about a lot in my 20s.
Yeah.
And then my 30s, still just as much. Later in my 40s, as I got older, I care less and less. Truthfully, I really do. I'm so happy in my life. Like, I love the golf life. I love the fact that I have the luxury of playing high stakes when I want to. But I guess ultimately, if I had to say, I would like to be seen as somebody who, you know, like was true to the spirit of what poker's supposed to be, which is fun, which is somebody that helped teach the younger generation or those around me, like how to make things fun, how to embrace the fact that like it doesn't have to be so serious and so stiff, and doing what you can to like promote the game. Like I mean, you offered me 100,000 to do this podcast, and I declined. Right? You see, I'm doing it for free.
What a pal!
Yeah, see, I saved you 100. There you go. Remember that next time you try to bluff me on the river.
Hey, private school's very expensive. My daughter is grateful.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. No, but in serious, like I'll do things, along those lines. I create content. I do this sort of stuff. But ultimately, I go down like this. Like the people who like me, that I'm friendly with, like they get me, right? They get me. They get what I'm about. They get I mean well, generally speaking. Yeah. And the ones that don't like me, there's nobody in poker that like doesn't like me that I go, shucks, I would have loved to hang out with that person. There's not one. Because if you don't like me and you don't get me and you don't get my jokey vibe and all that sort of stuff, we probably aren't, going to vibe anyway. So
we're probably not going to play golf together.
No, I'm not interested. Like whatever. And like I said, I know I'm not everybody's cup of tea, right? Some people enjoy watching me play, and other people are like, ugh, Negreanu again, But then I'm like wondering why, like the people that hate me, why do you watch all my stuff? Why do you watch all my stuff if you don't like me? Because you're commenting all the time. You know what I mean?
I don't think you're polarizing like Hellmuth, though.
It's a different thing, I think, like within the community. You know what I mean? Like, I remember when I first started out, I played cash at the Bellagio, but I also started playing the tournaments, and they used to call me a TV player. And that was kind of like sort of a condescending like needle. You know what I mean? Oh, yeah, here comes TV player, right?
Yeah.
TV player. And so I think to some degree now, probably there's a subsect of like the high roller. I think most of the high roller guys get me, and they get what I'm about, and they get how I contribute. But then there's a subsect that are like, either envious, jealous, or they like to poo-poo or scoff and mock me because I'm not up to date on the latest, like, GTO frequencies off 12 big blinds.
I like how you tried to throw in the Euro accent while saying GTO, but didn't quite.
Oh, did I? I didn't even notice that.
But you didn't quite nail it.
Right. So, like, a lot of people will scoff, and what they don't realize, too, they'll scoff and be like, he's no good at poker. I'm like, you grow up when I grew up, okay? With what I had available to me. I was one of the few people who used a floppy disk to run sims. Mike Carroll's Poker Probe, okay? I really did. I was like, that's how I got good at Stud 8 or better, just running sims every night. Yeah, like, but they took like 3 hours to just find out the percentages. That's it. Not like deep sims, just like who's the favorite, right?
Yeah.
But what I'd say is, again, it's hard to compare eras. This isn't my era anymore. It's a younger generation, whatever. I still can compete with them, but my era, I dominated, during my era, right? And you can't take that away from me. You can poo-poo it and go, oh, yeah, but he's terrible. I'm like, well, for the time, if you would have been back there, if you did better than me, great. But I figured it out, and I figured it out on my own. I didn't have like a study group. I didn't have, chip leader coaching. That I had learned from mistakes.
Hey, Dan, you can join our inner circle. We would love to have you.
I would, I actually thought about that. If I was going to join any inner circle to learn, like, so, because a friend of mine was asking me, he's like, we should just get heavy into the poker study. And I was like, well, if we did, I'd work with you guys in your boot camp. The only thing is, like, we play against you. I would only be concerned that you guys wouldn't want to help me because
no, like our inner circle now, the coaches are me, Alex and Kristen Foxen, and Lucky Chewy. And we're going to keep expanding as we're growing. We have like weekly, bi-weekly coaching calls, a community. It's fun. Like
Lucky Chewy's another good example of a guy who I find it so small-minded that people sort of mock his kismet idea, where he likes, he's a spiritual guy, a yogi, whatever. He likes to feel the energies of the situation and feel like what card's coming in. I know it's crazy to say, but throughout my life, I've felt a card coming many times. It's crazy. It's inexplainable. And of course, every science-based nerd is gonna be like, that's dumb. It's not true. Da, da, da. Like, okay.
Just because science can't define something yet doesn't mean it's not true.
You may be right, but you know what? you might not, right? And
Yes.
Lucky Chewy's a smart guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, if he's, in touch with his intuitive feeling and all that stuff, and I really believe wholeheartedly in whether you can predict the cards or not, or the feeling of the moment, sometimes I'll make a decision purely based on whether I feel like, I need to win. I don't know, beyond just the strategical aspects of the game, and just like go into that Lucky Chewy area. But again, he comes up with something that he believes to be true, and he's mocked by people that cannot disprove it because they're limited to a view that is only within what they can prove, right? Scientifically, if you will. But like, I don't know, man, we could all be in a matrix. That's very reasonably possible. If you look at how fast AI is developing, okay, like how far-fetched is it that
we're in the first iteration before it loops? Yeah, it's
that
not
a deja vu is like a glitch in the matrix. You know what I mean?
I couldn't agree more. And there's one thing about the legacy that you barely touched on it, but I think it's such a major pillar. I've told you in person, I said it during the intro, but I genuinely think I'm grateful for how much you've done to grow the game. Like my life wouldn't be what it is today if you didn't grow the game of poker for us.
Yeah, so I appreciate you saying that. And it always means a lot when other my peers do say stuff like that, especially at the higher levels, because obviously, smaller players, I hear that more, but usually the too cool for school guys don't want to say that. So I really appreciate you saying that. And like I said, at the studio, I'm really friendly with most of the guys there. I think they get me, and they have shown appreciation, because I was sort of at the forefront of all that before YouTube and all this kind of stuff. We were doing the video diaries and whatever. And I've always thought about ways to, shine a light and doing stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's not something that I struggle with. It just comes naturally to me. It's easy. I like it. I enjoy doing it.
It's part of your vibe.
Yeah, but I always hated the term ambassador because it feels so snooty. I'm an
Really?
ambassador. I don't like the word. I
Do
don't
you
know.
like team pro more?
Not really. Don't like that one either so much. But
What term do you like?
poker personality, maybe influential figure, whatever. But like ambassador, I don't feel like I'm supposed to go to some meeting in, the G7 and talk to leaders and stuff like that. But there's a lot of things I think people don't realize that I do now. One of the things I learned throughout my time is when I had an issue with poker, I would go directly to everyone, forums, poke, and just rant and rave, right? As I've gotten older and created relationships with people that are move makers, they run organizations. I think doing things behind the scenes is much more effective. So rather than throw a shitstorm on Twitter and X and just be like, blah, 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 because when you feed it to them, all the trolls come out and they're like, blah, 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 blah. So if I have an issue with something, I think even a company that, whether it's GG, WSP, and I think they're doing something wrong, I'm going to go to them. I'm going to handle it internally. I will take in the feedback that I hear from players like you and whoever else and go, they're not going to like this, or they're going to like this, and all those sort of things. I do this on the back end, and there's a whole bunch of stuff I do that I just think is better off not. Like Phil does the other thing, all the stuff that he was talking about, reducing the number of bracelets, all this stuff. There's no final answer to that. He did a big announcement, like, look at me, buddy, because what you do now is you make this sort of announcement, and then if it doesn't happen, now people get mad. You know what I mean? It's a discussion. We're trying to, that's why I always believe, and I think here's the other thing too people do. A lot of the younger guys, they burn bridges. You never know which bridge you want to cross later in life, right? So don't poo-poo on this or them, or I don't poo-poo our competitors. I don't. I got upset with one, sort of promotion they did during the summer because I thought it was designed to create chaos, and I didn't think that was good.
Man, I want to ask you about that. I'm so happy you brought it up. It wasn't even on my list.
Yeah.
I mean, they get in this situation where theoretically, right? We can only assume. I don't want to say anything for sure. That they made a deal on the side for the $1 million extra and one dumped to the other, right? That seems like the most likely occurrence. There was $1 million. Nothing happened prior to heads up. I mean, do you think what they did was bad? Do you think they should be banned forever?
Well, as far as penalties and stuff like that, again, I don't know that I have a strong opinion on what the outcome.
They
I
didn't
wouldn't
hurt
ban them
anybody else, right?
Here's the thing, right? In a sense, well, you have a production crew. It costs about $25,000-$30,000 to put on a poker show, right?
Yeah.
Typically, it's in that neighborhood. For people don't know that, but it's about that. Now you've like gone on national television and sort of like created a controversy and made a mockery of the game. You know what I mean? Now listen, you know what I wish they would have done? I wish they would have done this. One of them said, "I'm sick. I need to go to the hospital."
That's what I said. Family
right?
emergency.
If you do that, what are we going to say? I'm sick.
Yep.
He's like, well, we could play another day. He's like, no, I don't want to do that to him. He wins. Done. Right? The issue is we have commentators trying to describe what the heck's going on. Oh, wow. You must have a read on him.
Good job. They did a really good job.
You have allegedly even numbers. I have it. Odd numbers. I don't. Allegedly.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like it all just sort of was like an expose of what cheating and chip dumping would look like. So it's like, I don't think it benefits anyone, right? It's a trolley type. I understand why they did it. And I think that like my issue is having a thing where like it's been going on forever. Hey, if you the World Series of Poker, if you make the final table of the main event, you get an extra 100K. That's not going to have any effect on the play. Any. It's not going to, no one's going to go, oh, wow, this guy gets an extra 100K. We're playing for 5 million. You know what I mean? It's a very small percentage of the prize pool, which drives me nuts that the idiots who hate me, like who were like on the other side of it, is like, well, look, they do this. Doing a promo where you get an extra 5K if you cash in a tournament that pays $2 million doesn't create this. You have some tournaments where first prize might be 200,000 and you throw a carrot at these people where there's 4 left and you say, guys, listen, if I win, I get an extra $1 million. We can all chop it up 4 ways, 250 each, right? Like, how do you say no to that? Very, very difficult to do that. And it's like you've put them in an ugly spot. Like I said, I don't blame either player because it's a lot of money. But I think the promotion itself, like I said in the video that I did, either A, they didn't think about that as being a thing, or B, they did it to create this kind of chaos. And here's the issue. Whether you like it or not, World Series, you're not supposed to make deals, okay? You're not allowed to make deals. So they created something, a promo, that was going to incentivize people breaking the rules of the tournament that they're playing, right? It's in your financial incentive now to break the rules of an event, right? Because we'll give you extra money to do that. So overall, I feel like, listen, if you want to do that on your own events. You know what I mean? It's like, It feels very like,
I agree.
sabotage-y.
What WPT did was questionable. But do you think the punishment fit the crime for the 2 players involved?
I think it's heavy. Like I don't like lifetime bans for anything, frankly, unless it's like really bad. Because I don't think, like you said, theoretically,
because we look at Ren Lin, right, who we all really like, and he did something that affected players adversely. Then you look at these 2 guys, nothing affected.
Here's the issue, though. Like we say they didn't hurt anybody, but we don't know that for a fact. Okay, and I'll tell you why. Because if they had this deal, right, prior to the final 2, say, for example, let's say allegedly they asked the third guy, do you want in on this deal? He said no. Those 2 players now have subtle incentive to get rid of him, right? Not suggesting that happened. What I'm saying is we don't know for sure one way or the other. But anytime these sort of deals come about, the possibility of that exists, and that shouldn't be something that we like look to promote. Again, this is nothing. This is not the same thing as adding a 10K bonus seat. Okay?
Obviously not.
But like they were saying, it's like, it was unbelievable because like GG does a thing where if you win the main event,
I'm not the internet troll, okay? I'm not the one who said
these people like in the poker media or whatever, they were saying this. They were saying like the GG, like, because we always had this thing where if like you win the main, you get an extra $1 million. Full Tilt did it too. If you win, we'll make you $1 million ambassador. But the difference with it's 10 million or 9 million or 8 million. It's like it's like 10%. It's actually 1 million is 1% of the prize pool.
I mean, if I made a small final table, I was going to go do the nacho eating contest the day before, find the biggest guy on the street to eat all the nachos. So I didn't go into a food. Like I had a plan for what I was going to do. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, I'll put you on the spot, but and you can answer it or not. Let's say you're in heads up in the main event, the World Series Poker main event. First prize is like 10 million. Second is 6 million.
Okay.
And you're even in chips with a guy, but you get an extra, or if you win, you get an extra $1 million. Do you make a deal? Do you try to make a side deal with him to lock up the $1 million, or do you play?
Man, I have a coaching site. I wonder how much it would be worth for me. Probably more than that.
So you wouldn't, right?
No, I mean, like me getting first compared to second in the main is probably worth like $5 million to me.
But you wouldn't buy it.
No, I don't think I would.
Because I don't think you'd be able to sleep at night, frankly. You know what I mean? Like you won, but you didn't win. Like here's
I
the
had
thing.
this conversation with someone you and I both really like. I'm not going to say who. It's not appropriate. I was like, "What would you do?" And he's like, "I would have done the same thing, but you would have never known." I thought it was so fucking good.
That's
because, man, the odd even, and I was needling. One of them's a friend of mine. I was needling him afterwards, and I was like, he's like, we had like 4 minutes to figure it out.
Yeah. So like, here's the thing. The argument is that bad publicity is publicity and good publicity, but I don't agree with that. And then maybe like, I get it. That's clickbaity, that gets attention and all that sort of stuff. But for me personally, I'd rather show poker in the mainstream in a positive light. I don't think like the stories with Chauncey Billups and these private games, I don't think that does any benefit for poker. I don't think the front page of ESPN showing like cheating scandal or whatever, I don't think that overall is good for poker. All it does is disenfranchise those that just want to poo-poo and go, yeah, I'm not going to play that because I heard this one story. So the idea that it grows the game, I think it, gets attention, but it's, for me, the wrong kind of attention. But I think some of the people that, want to create that, they just, that's their MO, negative drives clicks.
Yeah. Where do you think poker's headed? Like,
I think poker's in a good place, like globally, right? Like,
yeah.
I really do think like streamers and content creators, they've been the next evolution of like really making the game, more like accessible to a lot of people. I also think too,
almost like
I don't know if you've watched
over the shoulder look.
Yeah. Like the stuff and I also think this too. And I think a lot of people poo-poo coaching sites, but I think they're wrong because a lot of regular people just want to get better at poker. You guys do what you do. I saw during the documentary, the No Limit documentary, Faraz Jaka, he does his deal, and he's got a little community of people. These are regular people. They're not trying to be professional poker players, but they want to get a little bit better. They want to learn, just like anything. You start taking up golf. You want to get better. You get a coach, not because you think you're going to be on the PGA Tour. We can make that bet, by the way. But
not the golf bet I was after, my friend.
So I don't poo-poo the coaching sites. I think they're good. I think the streaming's good. I think all the YouTube people are, creating, like, because the younger generation, the sort of TikTok reels and all this sort of stuff like Wolfgang and all this sort of thing, that's hitting a whole new market of people, right? The short king, I guess. Well, but he's not short. But you know what I mean? The shorts king. He does all the shorts.
Yeah.
I think poker, especially live, I think it's always going to flourish. I think people are going to want something to do. I also think too, this is kind of a side topic, but like with how isolated we've become because of social media and because of technology and AI, we're going to crave more and more interaction with humans, right? It's more and more difficult now. It's like, but the poker table is the one place where anybody can sit down and you hang out with a bunch of people that are all accepting you. You don't like, it's not like the lunch table you can't sit at. You get to hang out with whoever you want, with these kind of people. And it's like something to do, especially for people as they get older too. Longevity is predicted in large part based on community. If you've seen like the Blue Zone documentaries, one of the main threads is community, like spending time with family and friends and all that stuff. And so I think poker, and that's why I always say, like, poker, especially for people that are older, like, it's a good way to get out of the house and do something. If you can't golf no more, whatever the case may be. So I think it's in a good place. I think like I think the high stakes stuff, I don't know how much legs that has. I don't know if you thought about that much.
Especially with the new gambling thing. You can only write off 90% of your losses.
Right. I'm not sure how that's going to play out yet.
It should hurt high stakes. Like,
I've been doing some talking, but we'll see. Anyway, I don't know. I don't know how that's going to play out. We'll see. But the high stakes, here's the difference. Like when you run, $1,500 circuit or whatever, you have a large player base, right? And they all matter. At the high stakes, you might have, let's say, for example, you have 100 people, 5 really matter. Okay? If those 5 go home and don't play, the other 95 don't play. So the event doesn't run. So the amount of resources you have available at that level, it really comes down to the people who are losing. And that's just, if they don't play, if they get sick of it, they don't, they're not having fun anymore. I could see, I don't know. It's, there's some really, really big games
The
out there.
poker ecosystem that you're talking about, right? Where if you look at like the win-loss rate over time, you have the crushers, you have the whales, and then you have a bunch of categories of people in between. And I think like poker coaching sites are actually really good for the game because they flatten the curve, right? So the whales aren't losing as fast, the crushers aren't winning as much, which effectively, like a perfect poker ecosystem, if you were running a poker site, would be everyone breaks even and pays the rate.
You couldn't be more right. So, and I know this because I speak to organizers all the way. You want your worst players to play a little better.
Yes.
Because if they play really, really, really bad, they don't. I'll give you an example. Years ago, when I was previously with Stars or whatever, we looked at like, the average deposit, let's say of $20, how often they redeposited, how long it lasted, and how often they would do a triple, right? It got to a point where, because of the supernova thing, people were 20 tabling, the games got really, really tough. That $20 used to go a long way to the point where they were losing it. They were losing like, they play 1-2 no limit or something with $100 and like almost never win, right? It's a demoralizing experience when you get absolutely sharp.
They don't come back.
So the secondary deposit rate was dwindling. And then by the time that happened, the third was not even existent, right? Like it's not fun if you never win. Just like anything, you need to have winning moments. Vegas understands this with slot machines, right? Where, you're going to lose in slot machines. But you know what? Every once in a while, ding, 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 you get a little something to keep you going, right? That's the same thing. And that's why when people start talking about like what percentage of the field should be paid, one of the benefits of an extended payout is that weaker players or recreationals get to cash more often, right? Which is good for the entire ecosystem. So I don't care that much about the issue, like payout structures, whatnot, but there's a direct truth. And I remember the argument. I thought it was so short-sighted, the idea that it's hard to be a pro because of the flat payouts. I'm like, how does that make any sense?
The argument I would have against flat payouts and have them be steeper is it makes for better TV. I looked at the GG 10K, the one that they run in the Jeff Gross or whoever does. Yeah, Jeff Gross does the
GG Millions.
Thank you. And the payout structure was so tight that in our community, one of our students sent like this eights fold. We're under the gun opened, and you look and it's just like eights just fold.
Yeah.
And whenever you have a payout structure that is so tight where this guy could have done so many different things, and like under the gun opens, someone jams, ace queen suited is just a snap fold by Klodnicki. And it's like, that's a product of the payout structure because the guy's shoving so tight that all of a sudden he never has ace jack, he never has king queen suited, ace queen suited becomes a snap fold. It's pretty simple. And like, that's the problem. And PokerGo actually fixed that, where they made the payouts steeper again because it's just better to watch when people are fighting for pots instead of fighting for ladders.
So just so I understand what you're saying. So you're saying, doesn't flatter create that more? Because then if it's flatter, the pay jumps are worth less?
Yeah, so the pay jumps are worth less. There's less money up top, so you're just incentivized to play tight.
I see. So each ladder is...
the steeper it is, the more you're trying to win, the more you're trying to play closer to chip EV. Like if it was winner take all, think of it in extremes, right? If it was winner take all, everyone would be playing chip EV. It'd be the most insane, fun to watch shit ever.
Fair, sure.
But so when for example, flatter, the opposite.
Yeah, not that I'm suggesting this, but just to understand your point, because I think you're making a lot of sense. If it pays nine spots, 5th through 9 pay the same, right? And then like 1st through 4th goes up, so that 9 through 5th they don't have any ICM pressure. But then you have this big bubble at 5.
I think that it's like not really in the spirit of how poker tournaments work to have no jump, right? But to have like littler jumps and have it actually be exponential instead of just a straight line where it's much flatter, right? Instead of really going up. Like I think WSOP does it right. The way I always came up, like playing tournaments, 2nd place plus 3rd place equals 1st. That's just almost what it's been for ages, right?
Yeah.
And then now you see these super flat ones and they're just giving so much more money to 2nd through 8th. I think it makes it not fun to watch.
Yeah, no, I find this is the thing. I find like the cookie cutter final tables at high stakes, whether it's a studio or Tritons or whatever, and the average stack's like 15 bigs, and there's just the same old thing. The chip leader's opening every hand, the short stacks are folding, rinse, repeat. Like it's that to me, it's easy to explain and teach, to the novice watcher or whatever, but I don't find it that interesting. Like you said, I kind of like what you said in terms of everybody incentivized to play for a win.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like, but I also think too, I think ICM is one of the few areas where everyone's who's studying is nobody has the answers.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks they do because everyone's got the new tool. Like, oh, this is right. But you don't know because, as you know, one of the most difficult things about gauging the best ICM value play is future game. It is very difficult for any sort of solver to say, okay, well, yeah, but if I win this pot, like, how much is that worth in Chip EV? Because now I can apply the pressure to the other players. So how do you quantify that?
And those solvers, they used to be like 6 hands out, 12 hands out, and then the tournament ends, right? But now it's like 24 or 36 or something. Well, final tables take a whole hell of a lot longer than that. And so the future game, I don't think, is properly accounted for. And that's where the human logical deduction aspect comes into play, where like, okay, at this final table, if I double up, I get to win every pot. At that final table, if I double up, I don't. These people are still just going to be crazy. So I'm less incentivized to go for it, right? So like being able to simplify your ICM and think of it that way is super important.
I'd say this. So on that note, I really started a couple of years ago. I fell in love with PLO tournaments. I really, really love them. One of the most important aspects I think about PLO, and I strategically set myself up this way, is I think round the bubble, right? Because of the way that equities run, because of ICM pressure, having a short stack is death. You are so screwed. You do not want one. You'd rather not have one. Just don't have a short stack. So how do you do that? How do you create a scenario where you're going to have a big stack? Because that big stack is worth more than you think. Well, it requires playing some big pots earlier, right?
You cannot be risk adverse.
So in No Limit, I'm usually not necessarily looking to play big pots. Or PLO, I actively want to flip. You want to flip a coin? Yes, let's do it. Because half the time I'm going to have a heap of chips, and guess what I get to do? I get to open every hand. Yay, look at me. Well, you have to fold kings.
They have to fold aces. That's why PLO tournaments can be so stupid when you're short.
In the World Series of Poker this year, I was pretty tilted because I ended up becoming short on the bubble of the 100K. And I was like, oh my God, like, am I going to fold aces? Because it was a spot where, like you said, I had like 10 or 9 or 10 bigs, but we're like 1 or 2 out, and there's like a 3 big blind stack, a 2 big blind stack, a 4 big blind stack. So in that scenario, I'm probably supposed to fold aces, right?
For sure.
I can't do that.
I know you're supposed to.
Yeah, I did. Okay, I did run a bluff though on the bubble. Oh, this one's so stupid.
Oh, do tell.
You got to hear this one.
Yeah.
This one's against. This one's.
I'm sitting up.
So
I'm sitting up.
So I had about 15 bigs at the time. Okay, so I'm not like dead, but I'm short, and I have King, Queen, Jack 10 with the suit. Probably supposed to fold because there was 3 and 4 big blind stacks. It was really, really like. But I raise. Okay.
But you were like, wait a minute, I'm rich.
Yeah, I'm not folding this. So now flop comes 6-6 deuce. Checks to me. I'm like, I don't know. Small C bet, just pray they all fold. I have nothing, right? Oh, please, just everybody fold. Well, Bryce Yockey calls from the small blind. I'm like, I'm done, right? I'm done with him. Turns an ace though. Ooh, I'm supposed to have aces, right? Because that's like one of the few hands I'm supposed to open, off the stack. He checks. I don't have enough chips though to go turn and river barrel. I don't have enough.
Yeah.
So I decide I don't. Like I basically have I don't have less than a pot size left. I check it back with the intention of whatever he does in the river, I'm going to go for it and try to rep the aces.
If he checks them all in, if he bets small them all in.
Yeah. Well, luckily for me, the river's an ace. How in the world? He checks. If he has a 6, how in the world do I not have an ace here? It's impossible. I don't have an ace.
Yeah.
I didn't have an ace. So I bet it, and he folded. That was like, the bubble bluff that could have been a disaster.
And you hurricaned it in his face, I hope?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I tell you, I didn't show him. I showed like the people around me, the camera, and then they told him. Yeah, that was king high. Sean Deeb saw it. Yeah.
Love it. That's awesome. All right. So I always wrap these things up with the same question. And you've given some tidbits of knowledge on this topic already, but what would your advice be for aspiring poker tournament players? Or, let's be more broad, aspiring poker players in general.
Yeah. So first and foremost, you're an aspiring poker player, aspiring tournament player. I want to know, like, you got to decide first and foremost, like, what do you really want out of this game? Okay. You need to be clear. Do you really want to be a top pro? Do you want to make a lot of money doing this? Do you want to be a mid-stakes pro where, you just get by? Do you want to do this recreational because you enjoy it? Are you just looking to have fun with friends, right? Be very, very clear in your goal, because the road you take is going to be directly aligned with the goal you set, okay? If you want to be a top pro, you know what that's going to require? Hard work, real hard work. That's going to require working with other people, studying, learning the theory, all this sort of stuff. It's a full-time job and a half, okay? Yeah. So be prepared for that. If you just want to get a little bit better at poker, I think taking on some coaching, maybe some more relaxed stuff like that. But again, make it very, very clear to yourself, like, what you want from this game. Is this something that you want to make a living at? And understand, if you do that, this isn't an easy living. This is, a lot of people see it and it looks like, oh, I mean, these guys just play cards and they make money. It's stressful. Not everybody's cut out for this. Okay. You are going to, if you play this professionally or not, you're going to go through swings that you don't believe are true. If other people told you, like, you're going to go through this thing where, like, if anybody knew what I went through, they wouldn't believe it. Okay. People that have been through it, we believe it because we know it happens, and it can break your brain. It requires a level of resilience. My wife, one of the compliments she has for me is, she says, like, I'm incredibly resilient because, like you, listen, I was very lucky most of my career. I ran really, really good. I went through a period about a year and a half that made me like, go, what the heck's going on? And it's not make believe. It's not me getting outplayed or whatever. It's just evidence-based, losing the spots where you have no more say, right? And that can really bake your brain. And you say this a lot in some of your tweets and stuff, and I agree with it. Don't dwell on it. It doesn't give you any value. It really doesn't. Yeah. Like, you talking about how bad you run. It's like,
even
all you're
texting
doing is giving
people about the bad beat makes it worse.
Yes. And listen, I've done it because I've gone down that road, and you go crazy. Now, I'm not, you're going to do it sometimes, but just remember, ultimately, the value in these situations is this. You're losing, so what are you going to do? Right? Go, I'm unlucky. Or are you going to look at what you can control? Right? What did I do well? What could I potentially do better? I have a checklist for myself. Am I bluffing it off? Am I calling it off? Am I ending myself up, really short? Am I missing spots and stuff like that? So I go through my own checklist. And if I see holes, I go, okay, maybe let's do some of this or some of that, and noticing. And if I feel good about all those, have faith in what I'm doing and keep, trugging forward. But again, to answer the question succinctly, have a clear idea of what you want to do with this game, and then create the plan based on that.
That's awesome. That's one of my favorite answers I've heard for that one.
Nice.
Cool. Well, thanks so much, man. I appreciate it.
You got it. Glad we could finally get this done.
Yeah, me too.